but my printers have like a troubleshooting issue.
Oh.
Does anyone have one?
Yeah, I have.
Do you have an extra one?
I only have this one right now, but we can
Oh, check it
make
on
it.
the
Is there like
screen
a
too.
copy machine nearby?
Yeah.
Yes.
So hold on.
Yep.
Let me just make sure. 3, 4. Nope, you're good. It's double-sided. It's right down the hall, and you can get in this room. Okay. All right, what time we got? 4 minutes. 4 more minutes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Can I get your name and your company if you're comfortable sharing?
Well, this is Bill Malone, and I'm bad company.
I'm
Good morning.
Giovanni. I'm the procurement officer for this our RFI. Some of our stakeholders are calling in.
Sure.
So that's who. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you see them on there? I do see them on here. If they've logged in with their name.
Okay.
Otherwise, I just see a phone number.
Okay.
So.
We're gonna go ahead and mute here for a couple minutes until we start the call for everyone.
Hi all, this is Judy Giovanni. I'm the state procurement official for this RFI, and I just want to thank you for joining our call for this project and kind of go over what the RFI process is and a couple other housekeeping items, and then I'll turn it over to the folks that you really want to talk to, our program folks. The RFI is our way of gathering information on, subjects that we don't have any experience with. As you all know, the federal government is moving forth with an effort on FirstNet as well. We are just looking ahead and trying to gather our own information relative to the state of Colorado. The RFI process is confidential, so anything that you submit as a response will be held confidential until we decide, A, we're not moving forward with a proposal, or if we move forward and do create a request for a proposal, RFP, is held confidential until such time that project is awarded. So we know, I don't want you guys to think that this information is going to be out in the public domain until such time that we decide to, either not move forward with an RFP, or at the end of the RFP process. It will be held confidential until then. Also, I want to offer, if you want to identify yourselves and your company, that's great and fine. If you want to remain anonymous and ask questions that way, we're fine with that as well. I think we're just more interested in the questions and the information that you guys can provide us, and if you don't feel comfortable disclosing, that's fine with us as well. We are also going to hold the question period open until May 20th. So if after this call you have some questions that you would like to ask, I'm going to go back and modify the RFI to keep the question period open until the 20th of May. And then, of course, the RFI proposals are due May 31st, and submit those electronically. You don't need to send a hard copy. Just send an email to the OIT purchasing email box or to my email box, judy.giovanni@state.co.us. So with that, I am going to turn the session over to Mr. Brian Shepard.
Thanks, Judy. We want to, as Judy said, we want to thank you, everyone, for your time and look forward to hearing from everyone on the response in the RFI. And just to reiterate something that's in the RFI document, we're really looking for any information that folks are willing to provide. No comment is too big or too small or too off the wall. We're really looking for a lot of information, as much information as you can have and provide. If you've got canned information on your company or your services, we'd be interested in that. If you have specific information you want to write up, we're interested in that. We really just want to use this as a fact-finding process and really understand what some potential possibilities are out there for the alternative plan development. So with that, I think what we'll do is jump right into some of the questions. We do have some questions that were submitted electronically. Again, we will anonymize them, so we will not state who these questions came from. So we'll read the question and then kind of read our response and provide some opportunity for any kind of discussion. So the first question we have is, with respect to the state's objective of encouraging broad participation from highly capable private parties, is the intention to maximize commercialization potential of the network or prioritizing service to first responders? And I think our response to that question is going to be, our priority is always to provide the best network we can for first responders, to maximize the coverage and capacity for those that need the network. That said, we're well aware of we could build the greatest network ever, and if it's too expensive for anyone to use it, it doesn't really do us much good. Vice versa, if we provide a great opportunity for a private entity to maximize their income, but don't provide a true statewide network, doesn't do much. So I think our goal for this is to kind of find that sweet spot, so to speak, of how do we maximize coverage and capacity and capability for our first responders while keeping it financially possible, both from a capital and operational perspective. So I guess, to answer that question, if we had to, our priority is first responders for this. So I don't know, Kim, do you have anything to add on that?
No.
Okay. Any questions or response to that question from the phone? Okay. The second question. The RFI listed the integration of the ADCOM network into any potential design as a key objective. Does the respondent need to independently negotiate with Adams County regarding the integration, or can negotiations be done through the state's authorized entity? The official response at this point is we cannot tell you that yet. We have not got that far with negotiations. Adams County is a local home rule county, and the Adams County Communication Center is actually a nonprofit entity. So we have not kind of broached that subject with them. We would hope that we can make any kind of negotiation as streamlined as possible. And our goal is to have a single entity kind of represent the interests of the state, but there always is the possibility that multiple local jurisdictions would have some part of the negotiations of that as well. So that's probably the best answer we can provide at this point. Is there any follow-up questions or comments to that?
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
Is it possible, where will the state stand if it has to make its own investment into it? Is it allowed to make an investment into it, or how?
Into the Adams County network?
Into the P3 that gets put together for the state that incorporates places like Adams County and all the other entities throughout the state.
Yeah, at this point, we would ask respondents to assume that there will be some type of single authorized entity, and we focus on single authorized entity again. With Colorado being a home rule state, it kind of complicates how we do things from a statewide perspective. But you should anticipate a single statewide entity that is authorized to negotiate on behalf of the state and any local jurisdiction that voluntarily participates in that entity. And that entity, we would foresee, yes, potentially providing capital and human resources to the overall efforts in any type of P3.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the next question. What assets will the state make available to the respondents to reduce the project's Capex and Opex? On the capital side, I think we would be willing to make available any fiber assets the state owns or manages, any towers the state owns or manages, and any rights of way or state property, buildings, that type of thing, rights of way. From a local jurisdiction perspective, again, local jurisdictions will have the opportunity to participate in this effort if they so choose. And again, anticipating a single authorized entity, there could be local jurisdictions that allow for the use of their assets as well, and I would anticipate being the same thing: fiber, rights of way, towers, buildings. So you could anticipate a wide range of capital assets being made available to the project. On the Opex side, I think the biggest potential in kind, so to speak, might be human resources. Obviously, we have a large statewide land mobile radio network, as well as multiple local and regional land mobile radio networks that have human assets right now that maintain a lot of that infrastructure. And in anticipation that that infrastructure could be reused for the LTE network, whether that be towers or buildings or even network equipment, you know, there would be the potential for the human resources that maintain some of those assets right now to participate and be made available to reduce the Opex expenses from that, as well as other, you know, general IT resources. So that's probably as of right now, that's about what we could say on that. Any questions from that? Okay. If a proposed network design requires pole attachments or rights of way through land not owned by the state, to what extent will the state assist the respondent in securing such rights? We will assist as much as possible in those. And obviously, Colorado is a heavily federal state, so about a third of Colorado is federal land. So that we would commit to working with our federal partners on looking at those rights of way or anything of that. There is local land as well, obviously. Again, we would work with any respondent to integrate the local rights of way or land issues with them. There's also tribal. The tribes are a part of this effort as well, and would anticipate working with the tribes on that as well. So you could count on as much assistance as possible as we can possibly provide.
Will there be environmental as well?
Yeah, I would imagine, there will be environmental issues, obviously, awaiting on the NTIA. We imagine, based on the grant program that the NTIA will be specifying for the project, we would anticipate that if we take any federal funds, that would basically, we'd have to go through the NEPA process and the same process that FirstNet itself is going to have to go through. So I know FirstNet is working on kind of those environmental issues. So we would anticipate that, again, if we take the federal money, that we would have to basically comply with those same environmental standards that FirstNet has to. In terms of if we were to not take the federal money, I think just the standard federal processes would apply on federal land for any type of new construction. Again, we would hope to minimize new construction by utilizing existing assets. We do have significant assets throughout the state. Yeah, we really can't, until we see, I think, the complete guidance from FirstNet and the federal agencies on what the environmental and the NEPA policies for this overall effort are going to be, we can't really provide a greater answer to that. Okay, will all permits, licenses, easements, etc. be taken in the name of the state? At this point, that's unknown. It could be the state, it could be this authorized entity, it could be a combination of both. There could be some local, it could be the provider, depending, I think, the business model and what a potential vendor would propose as an ownership model and operation model would probably dictate that as well. Any questions on that? Okay, our next question. Does the state have a comprehensive database of all its existing fiber and conduit assets? If so, are these records electronic? We are working on it, and I would say you can anticipate that this being true by the time any procurement would take place, that we will have a comprehensive record of all state and some local assets, and yes, it will be electronic, most likely in GIS shape files. Any follow-up comments or questions on that? Okay, next question. In order to develop a financially robust proposal, we need to understand the state's current financial obligations to current providers of telecommunication services. Which firms are currently responsible for providing the first responder service to the state? When do these contracts expire? Are these contracts public? Which firms are currently responsible for providing network connectivity to state buildings, schools, libraries, or other CAIs? When do these contracts expire? Are these contracts public? So this is a complicated question, again, because of the home rule. From the state has multiple services. For example, our state network, our land-based state network to our state buildings is currently in managed services with CenturyLink. I do not know the contractual details of that. And I believe our state patrol uses they use Verizon, right? I believe our state patrol utilizes.
In some areas they use alternate, but largely Verizon. Yeah,
largely Verizon. But again, again, because of the geography and the difficulty, the fact that there is not one single carrier that can really offer a solid statewide service at this point, that is varied. When you get down into the local entities, and again, I think this is important for all respondents to understand. Colorado is a home rule state, which means the first responders that are employed by the state are actually a very, very small percentage of the overall first responders within the state. A vast majority of first responders are local, municipal, county, or special district first responders. And so again, the state has no control over those entities. They make their own financial decisions. And so the answer to this question would probably be all of the above, that you can probably count on every of the 4 major wireless carriers. They all have some type of contract in the state with somebody. 2 regional carriers, secondary regional carriers that do have contracts with first responders. And then on the wired side and land-based side, probably pretty much any land-based backhaul provider that you can think of most likely has some type of contract in the state. All those contracts are for various times and have various parameters from them. So complicated answer to a complicated question. Any follow-up on that? Okay. What, if any, tax incentives will the state be willing to provide the respondent in order to reduce project costs? That's an excellent question. Currently, there is a tax a state sales tax incentive for broadband equipment. It is focused on rural areas. So the equipment must be installed in rural areas and the primary purpose be to provide service to rural areas. So that currently exists on the books right now, and I would imagine would be available to any respondent. It is a limited sales tax exemption. There's a cap on it per year, and I believe it's kind of a first come, first serve on companies taking advantage of that. There is a current bill in the Colorado legislature that is providing a business personal property tax exemption for telecommunications equipment. The details of that bill are still being worked out. So those are two, or one for sure, and one that is working its way through our legislature. I think we would be interested in hearing any suggestions or recommendations or examples from other states that a respondent might have. We would be looking to say, here are, some specific tax breaks that we have seen, maybe not even just for first or public safety projects, but large-scale broadband projects in general that could provide significant impact to the project. Questions or comments on that? Okay. Does the state have information on the preference of first responders regarding field equipment, i.e. agency supplied equipment versus customized personally supplied equipment? We are starting to get a little bit of information on that. I think, again, with the decentralized nature of our public safety community, every agency is different. Some agencies allow BYOD, some agencies don't. Some agencies just focus on data. Some agencies have different contracts for data versus voice. And so it's it's varied across the state. I think that's one of the efforts we will be working on, and again, would like to seek some feedback from the private community on what are some ways to do this, knowing that there's an economies of scale, and obviously you want to provide our first responders with a wide variety of options, but we have to integrate also with the FirstNet standards in terms of devices, that will be allowed on the network and so forth. So would welcome some feedback on that. Any follow-up questions? Okay. Is the state considering local labor requirement / DBE requirements for the project? I'm going to turn that one over to Ms. Giovanni.
Okay. It all depends on how we go out to bid for this project. If we go out for a services contract, we don't have a Colorado labor preference. But if we go out as a construction project, there is a requirement that you use 80% Colorado labor. So that is one of those things that will be determined as we get closer to moving forward with the solicitation, whether we go down a goods and services path or we go down a construction path. Is there any questions or follow-up on that one? Okay, back to Brian.
Okay. Will the coverage models used to produce the RFI information pack be available to the respondent? We weren't quite sure the specific details of this question, but our interpretation is, will the source files that were utilized in the coverage modeling process be made available? We can't say for sure, but I would anticipate that yes, we would provide some more detail. We are still working on kind of a detailed coverage model, and again, this coverage model is based on assets we know exists in the state, and is not. It would not be a you have to follow this model. It would be more of a guideline that we would produce, but we would work with our consultants, Signals Analytics, to figure out what information can be made available, and we would make as much information available as possible without compromising any type of public safety, in terms of specific asset locations that are currently used for public safety. So that's probably the best answer we can provide to that question. Any follow-up? Okay. Is the state open to integrating existing fiber assets / networks into any proposed network design? A resounding yes. That is one of the foundational elements we believe would be necessary for an economical alternative RAN design, would be the utilization of those existing fiber assets, tower assets, and existing networks throughout the state. Any follow-up? Okay. Will the state be able to provide information on the current spend on first responder services by region? We anticipate yes. We're working on that. That is one of the things we hope to work on, is to get a better idea at a local level of what first responders are specifically, paying right now for services overall, to be able to provide that in any kind of procurement vehicle that we would say, we estimate currently throughout the state, both at a local and state level, we are spending X amount on wireless services. We would probably try to break that down by voice and data services, and that we would also break that down into the state is also paying X amount for network transport services. Any follow-up or questions? Okay, I believe that is all of the questions that were sent in prior. So at this point, we would open it up to any questions from the audience on the telephone. And again, as Judy said, if you would like to state your name and your organization, you are welcome to. If you wish to remain anonymous, that is acceptable as well. So. Any further questions? Okay. Well, if there are no further questions, as Judy mentioned, we will keep the question process open through May 20th via the email. The instructions to submit questions are part of the RFI, and she'll make the modification to the RFI. So at any point, please contact her, or if you have additional questions as well concerning the process or general thoughts that we have on it, please contact Judy as well, and she can work with us to get you a response to any kind of procedural or logistical questions involved in the process.
And we'll post the responses to the questions, written responses as well on the website.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.